Good evening, everyone. The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, I'll call this July Borough Council meeting to order. Please rise for a moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Landis.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Edie Robb's obituary started with how her life so tragically ended. Retired Colonel Edith M. Edie Robb died July 2nd, 2021, when she was struck by an automobile while biking in the countryside with her husband near their home in Boiling Springs, Pennsylvania. Her obituary continues with paragraph after paragraph of service to her community and country, first through the military and then as a South Middleton School Board Director. She was loved by many and made an incredible impact on so many through her work. Even though she seemed like a very special person, she's not any more special than anyone else who has the right to safely use our roads. Each one of us should be able to safely navigate across our county without fear of injury because we aren't using a motor vehicle to travel. The way we speak of tragedies like this can make it seem like no one was at fault. A few headlines from this. School board member killed in Cumberland County bike crash. South Middleton School Board member killed in bike crash in Monroe Township. Bicyclist killed, identified after crash with vehicle in Monroe Township. None of these mention in the headline that the car that crashed into her was the driver's fault. Some commenters have noted it could be written, woman hits two cyclists, killing one. Driver not paying attention kills one cyclist and injures another. It's not until the third paragraph in one article that it's referenced that they were hit through no fault of their own. State police said a 74-year-old Boiling Springs woman was driving west one Lida when she hit Rob and her husband Samuel from behind as they were pedaling west. Investigators said the woman failed to see the bicyclist before the crash. We also focus on things to put blame on the riders, like helmets. The article mentions Dauphin County Coroner Graham Hetrick said Rob had been wearing a helmet, but she died of multiple traumatic injuries. What would have kept Edith alive would have been the driver of a one-ton vehicle paying attention and sharing the road, something we all should be doing. I call upon leaders of our neighboring municipalities across our county to make the safety of our vulnerable road users a bigger priority. If we can make our spaces safe for our youth and for the elderly and for those with disabilities, it will be safe for everyone in between. The safety of our roads to vulnerable users should be a priority across our county and region. We should not shrug our shoulders and think it's just a tragic accident. The speed and force of a one-ton vehicle will always win against the human body. When we drive, we must look out for bicyclists, pedestrians, scooters, skateboards, wheelchairs, motorcycles, and all people navigating while being exposed. And we should look to implement Vision Zero planning across our municipalities. Edith's obituary ends with Edie will be laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery at a later date. In the spirit of how Edie lived, the family asks that in lieu of flowers, you help a child, an elder, a veteran, and his or her family, and anyone else less fortunate through the charity of your choice. And not the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilor Landis. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Cramsey?
Here.
Ms. Fulham-Winston?
Here.
Mr. Hicks?
Here.
Ms. Landis?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Mayor Scott?
Here.
Mr. Stubbe?
Here.
All right, thank you very much. A quorum is present. Next, we'll have a presentation and the borough's acceptance of the All-America City Award. We have a representative from the National Civic League. And I will also call on Councilors Landis and Hicks to join her at the podium.
I need this, but you too. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, fellow Carlisle citizens. I'm Maya Camo, and I grew up here, but moved away for 20 years to Washington, D.C. Moved back about 4 years ago when I started my own advisory firm, and I am on the board of the National Civic League. It's my distinct privilege today to join you this evening to help you celebrate and commemorate being named a 2021 All-America City Award winner. Now in its 72nd year, the All-America City Award recognizes and celebrates the best in American civic innovation. The award, given yearly to 10 communities, now almost 500 in total across the country, recognizes the work of communities in using civic engagement to address critical issues and create stronger connections among residents, businesses, and nonprofit and government leaders. The 2021 award theme was Building Equitable and Resilient Communities. As such, the 2021 awards recognize communities that have worked to improve equity and justice in their towns. Carlisle first submitted an extensive 26-page application, which I'm very sure you guys all know, back in February, which described 3 projects around this theme, as well as the strengths of the community's civic capital, what the League calls the formal and informal relationships, networks, and capacities that enable communities to solve problems and thrive. Carlisle's application was then reviewed by 10 civic engagement, resilience, and equity experts, and the review committee found Carlisle's application to be strong in the areas of equity, collaboration, and resident engagement. Therefore, in March, Carlisle was invited to be one of 20 finalists. That was an exciting day for me because it was the top of the fold of the Sentinel. And so from March until June, the Carlisle team worked tirelessly to bring their application to life in the form of a 10-minute presentation to an 11-member jury made up of government, nonprofit, and business leaders. Projects of this presentation featured in the presentation included the Carlisle Community Action Network, work to achieve racial equity and justice, and the Climate Action Commission. I watched the presentation and I actually teared up. I thought it was so well done, and I wasn't part of the planning for it, so I didn't know what to expect, and I was really, really impressed and kind of got chills and found myself being very proud to live here. The jury was specifically impressed that all of the projects were led by Carlisle citizens, and that's not something that we often see in communities. It's usually top down, and the jury was really impressed that it was citizen driven. The jury felt that Carlisle has a culture of engagement and were impressed with the dedication to collaboration and community partners. Those are direct quotes from the jury. Ultimately, the jury felt that the application and presentation were absolutely terrific, and they were happy to designate Carlisle, Pennsylvania, as a 2021 All-America City. So it's my honor to present your winning plaque, and as we heard the other day, Carlisle is the first city in over 20 years in Pennsylvania, the first city in Pennsylvania in over 20 years to receive this, so congratulations. Here it is.
Thank you so much, darling.
Joel, it's beautiful. I wish it was bigger.
Thank you. It is beautiful.
It's very big next to me. It's also very small.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, no, we got a Stephanie coming. Hold on.
Oh.
Stephanie gets all the credit for that presentation anyway. So she.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maya.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Maya, and thank you, the National Civic League. I know, and everybody up here on this dais, and these people over here know that Carlisle is special, but now the entire nation knows it, and we couldn't be prouder. So thank you, Brenda, thank you, Joel, and your team for all the hard work in making this happen. All right, now on to citizens to be heard. Is there anyone here in Borough Hall that would like to address council on a matter of borough government? If so, they may speak now, or they can wait until later. All right, seeing no one here. Joyce, is there anyone in the Zoom chat that wants to be recognized?
There is no.
Okay, all right. Move on to the consent agenda. This is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature and which probably don't require additional discussion. They can be acted on by one motion in their current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. Is there any member of council that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No, but can I applaud one of them?
You may absolutely applaud one. Which one would you like to applaud?
She knows what it is. I missed the last Parks and Rec meeting, and it must have been on it because I was so jazzed to see this thing. And it is the Halloween parade, which is on October 27th, which is not a day that Dickinson is on break, which means I can force students into the Halloween parade, as I've done with the radio station only once, because it's only ever happened in the years that I've worked there. And we created Dark Side of the Rainbow, Pink Floyd, and Wizard of Oz hybrid, because music is important. So I think that it's going to be a great Halloween parade. First, we're going to have it. Second, I can enlist new energy into it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Okay, we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Brenda. All right. Any member of the public with an item they'd like to see removed and considered separately? Our 3 members of the public that are here. Anyone on Zoom seeking to be recognized, Joyce? Okay. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve everything at the bottom of page 1 up to and including the top of page 3.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. I usually make that motion, but I was going to defer to Brenda anyway.
Thank you.
This is kind of her and Joel's night, so we'll let them do what they please. All right. We have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Moving on to page 5 of your agenda. There are no tabled, continued, or recurring items. Under reports from elected officials, Chair recognizes Deputy Mayor Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had a lot of happiness here, and I think in the end, this will be a happy moment for the borough. And I know Bedruden Bitsarovich is with us tonight via Zoom. This year is the 26th anniversary of a very dark time in human history. It marks the anniversary of the Srebrenica genocide that occurred during the war in Bosnia. It was a time that the Bosnian Serb paramilitary force, along with paramilitary forces from Serbia, massacred over 8,000 Bosniak civilians and expelled over 30,000 Bosniak civilians in what was later recognized truly as a genocide. And a really horrific time, and that we see moments in history like that, unfortunately, over and over again, sometimes on larger scale, sometimes on smaller scale, times in our American history where we've had awful massacres. But it's also a time for remembrance and reflection, and it's a time to recognize that the positivity in the human spirit, and that there is rebirth and renewal even in such devastation. So after Bedruden is able to make some comments, I'll be making a motion to create a Srebrenica Remembrance Day here in Carlisle to commemorate the event that will be occurring this weekend. So if we can bring Bedruden on.
Can everybody hear me?
We have you, Bedruden. Thank you.
Will I be able to share my screen?
I believe. Yes, you can do that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Bedruden Bitsarovich, and I'm here on behalf of the Bosniak Islamic Cultural Center. As many of you remember, a few months ago, I was here to talk about, I was over on Zoom, essentially to talk about why we should have a Remembering Srebrenica event. July 11th marks the Srebrenica genocide, in which over 8,372 Bosnian Muslim men and boys were killed. One of those individuals was my own grandfather. The Cultural Center takes every July 11th commemorates through various events. And this year we have decided to involve the greater Carlisle community. I'm proud to say that everything we have set out to accomplish a couple months ago has been accomplished, and this Sunday we will be holding that event. I'm going to share my screen. Actually, it will not let me share my screen. I was going to share. Can everybody still hear me? Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
You guys can hear me? Okay. I was going to share something. I was going to share the flyer and a map, but I will just describe the start time and how long the walk will be. Essentially, so the event will be from 5 p.m. to approximately 8 p.m. on Sunday, July 11th. It will start at Lindner Park in Carlisle, which is located on East Park Street. We will start off by holding a few talks. I will be there. The head imam will be there. I know Brenda, Sean, and then a professor from Dickinson will all share essentially what this means maybe to them or to the Carlisle community. From there, we will unveil a memorial bench, and then we will go on a approximately 1.2 mile walk. We will go. We'll start off at the corner of West North Street and East Park Street, and then we'll go to South College Street. We will walk down to the main street that runs by Dickinson. We will go back up on Cherry Street and then all the way back to the park. At the beginning, we were thinking about having 1.6 miles, but because of the heat and COVID and all that stuff, I know many of us are vaccinated, but for the safety of the elderly and in consideration of how long that is, we decided to shorten it a little bit. So that is all I have. Again, I wanted to thank everybody, Brenda, Sean, the whole Borough Council. I want to thank you guys specifically for all the help, for all the time you guys have invested in this. One of the things I mentioned a couple months ago when I was talking about why we should have it, I specifically said that the Carlisle community is willing to support us, to take the time to learn about this, and you guys have done exactly that. You guys have supported us through every step of the way, and we accomplished what we said we would.
Thank you, Badru.
So thank you.
Thank you. And if you would want to share the materials with us, I'm sure it's something we could promote on our website and social media. So if you want to forward it, you can forward it to me, and I'll forward it on to Stephanie here.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I move the council adopt a resolution designating July 11, 2021 as Srebrenica Remembrance Day to recognize the week of July 11, 2021 as Bosnia and Herzegovina Tribute Week in the Borough of Carlisle.
Deputy Mayor Schultz makes a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to reports from committee, budget and finance.
And that's me again.
Yeah.
We have a 2021 mid-year budget review presented by Director of Finance, Ricky Judet. I told you I'm not going to let it go. No.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for a financial status update second quarter review. This is a second part of a 4-part series, so I appreciate you sticking with me. We're going to start tonight with the general fund. Things are looking pretty good in there. I have, blowing it. Okay, we have the fund summary down at the bottom there, which shows for the first half of the year where we are in terms of revenue and expenditures, and I also listed 2018 through 2020 as well, just comparatively. For revenues, we're at 56%, which is pretty typical for us. The bulk of that revenue is our real property tax revenue. We've collected about 93% to date, and that's our biggest revenue generator at the beginning of the year. I also wanted to highlight that we received a large health insurance reimbursement. We didn't get one last year. And how that's generated is how many claims we made against our insurance in the previous year. And in 2020, our claims dropped. So we got a $100,000 reimbursement in the general fund, which was $25,000 over what we anticipated, which helped our revenue so far. We had a few underperforming areas. Our building permits, our pool, rec revenue, they're both down at this point in the year in comparison to historical. So we'll hope to see those improving as the year goes on. Additionally, we're about $31,000 less in interest revenue. Unfortunately, the interest rates have dropped substantially. We were getting about 2% in the previous year, and towards mid-end of year, they dropped to less than 1%. So we're looking at about a high point of 0.04% of interest. So not getting the revenues we hope for at that point. Our expenditures, they are slightly higher than our historical activities. That's primarily due to a number of retirements that occurred during the year and some employees leaving, which results in a payout of accrued benefits. So we'll be monitoring that. We're not asking for a budget adjustment today since we're still well within our budget, but maybe third quarter we'll see where we're heading and may need to revisit that. Another point that I wanted to point out was our overtime. We're doing well on that regard. $55,000 less than we budgeted at this point in the year, and $30,000 less than historical. So doing good there. All right, now we'll move on to our utility funds. This is our water, sewer, stormwater. They're all doing, as expected. You'll see that the revenues aren't at 50%, and that's really, again, how we record our revenues. We bill after the fact, so the revenues that we generated in the first few months get put back into the previous year, into the year that the service was incurred. So we'll see a large revenue coming in the second half of the year for those. Collections are still down. I don't want to get too far into that because it'll ruin the surprise on the next slide. So, but our water rate has increased. The council approved that increase back in December. So we're seeing a 3.4% increase in our water rate effective May 1st. So any billings after May 1st, we'll see that increase. In terms of expenses, they're lower than historical, and the primary driver of that is operating supplies, as well as a few positions that we haven't filled yet that are generating some savings there. Okay, this is our aged accounts, our outstanding balances that we have for our utilities. I have two charts here, two tables that show the first quarter, which was presented back in April, and the second quarter as it lies June 30th. You'll see that in 2021, the columns there, we've had an increase of 100,000 in our outstanding balances overall. However, in terms of the number of accounts, we've seen a decrease of 40. So what's driving that increase actually is due to a number of industrial properties and commercial properties that have large balances that haven't made payment yet. So they're the result of that large increase. In terms of the number of accounts, what I presented here was those accounts that are at the lien threshold. That would be those that have an outstanding balance of $436 or more. So we've had a decrease in that since last quarter, and you'll see that our rental and residential have both decreased, with the increases in the commercial and industrial resulting in the balances there. Our solid waste fund, there's not a whole lot here to talk about. It's meeting expectations that we budgeted for. Our revenues and expenses are right in line as to where I expected them to be. Unfortunately, that being the case, we're not generating a surplus, so we, at this point, are still expecting to draw down on fund balance as the year goes on. But both revenue and expenses are right where they're anticipated to be. All right, now we're on to our parking fund. Both revenue and expenditures are down in that fund. Expenditures are down due to less hours that we require in the first half of the year from our parking enforcement officers, as well as our garage attendants. And revenue has seen a drop, mainly due to parking meter revenue and garage revenue. With less hours manning the garage, we're generating less revenue. And we also aren't collecting revenue from our gold meters. So we're still have things in place that are resulting in these declines. Our leases and our parking permits are right on track. They're back to normal levels. So we started issuing those, and revenue is right where they need to be for those. Additionally, we had a budgeted for a $20,000 subsidy from the county. Depending on the previous year and how it performed, the parking garage performed, the county would give us up to $20,000. We're waiting on our final audit figures to generate that, but it's looking like we wouldn't have a substantial loss in the operating for the garage to get that. But we'll know once we get those final numbers. Okay. Any questions?
When is I hate to ask this question, when is our garbage renewal for looking at?
We have one more year.
Okay.
So we will be looking at that in early next year, end of this year.
Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
You thought I was going to say Ricky again. Okay. Next, I move that council adopt a resolution approving the sale and disposition of vehicles and other equipment listed in Exhibit A of the resolution that may be sold through municipal bid.
Deputy Mayor Schultz makes a motion to adopt a resolution approving the sale and disposition of vehicles and other equipment. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Next, I move that council reaffirm authorization of the solicitor to execute the settlement stipulation for the assessment appeal of Indiju Hospitality, which is the sleep-in in town.
Deputy Mayor Schultz makes a motion to reaffirm the authorization of the execution of a settlement stipulation. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Community planning and smart growth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items tonight. My first item, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve a preliminary and final subdivision and land development plan prepared by Alpha Consulting Engineers, Inc. on behalf of Thomas D. Angolo, Realty Group, dated 4/15/2021 for the 0.34 acre parcel located on the west side of Franklin Street between 1106 and 1138 Franklin Street, R2 medium density residential, subject to the applicant's acceptance and satisfactory resolution of the conditions listed herein.
Mr. Cramsey makes a motion to approve a preliminary and final saldo plan. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion on this?
I have a question. It actually is in reference to both of these items. It's just something we've talked about before, and I wanted to be refreshed. In the fee in lieu of parkland, do we put that aside for anything in particular, or does it sort of just go back in? Because we had a discussion at one point about I think it was an apartment complex, and the neighbors were talking about wanting a park, and there was the fee in lieu of, but I wasn't really sure if we've ever put that together, since we do sometimes need funds for park specific things. So is that something that we are doing or have talked about doing?
We have a separate line item in our budget for rec area fees, and during the budget process, when we have different projects like the pool slide or whatever, when we're doing the budget, we decide what if those would be rec area fees or if it's borrowed money or whatever. So it's kind of decided during the budget time.
Okay, I was just asking because I know that sometimes we have had these looming questions of matching funds for grants and things, and so sometimes we have to make money appear, which we can't do. So it was just something that I thought that we could maybe discuss to think about if it's not being targeted to one thing right now. That could, I mean, I know we don't have that many places to develop anymore, and it's not a huge amount of money, but just something that.
Yeah, it is required to be kept in a separate fund.
But that's
that is
so.
and it can only be used for rec.
Okay, it can. All right, that
related
that clarifies my question.
Programs, stuff like that.
Perfect. Thank you.
There's a motion.
Motion and second. I think there may be a representative here from Alpha Consulting. Is that you, sir?
I'm not from Alpha. The actual Realty Group.
Okay. Did you have any comments?
I don't.
Okay. It's always polite to ask.
I appreciate it.
No problem. All right. As I've been reminded, we have a motion and a second. Seeing nothing further, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. And my second item tonight, I'll make a motion that Borough Council may approve a waiver for the submission and preliminary subdivision and land development plan for 101 and 120 G Street, 226-19. Borough Council may also approve a final subdivision and land development plan submitted by FSA Associates on behalf of DABD Limited Partnership, located on the northwest and southwest corners of G Street and North Pitt Street, R2 medium density residential, subject to the applicant's acceptance and satisfactory resolution of the conditions listed herein.
Mr. Cramsey makes a motion to approve a waiver for a preliminary saldo and also to approve a final saldo. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item?
I have one, Mr. Mayor, and just this is educating me if you can. So on the waiver, could anyone describe in a couple of sentences sort of what the threshold we consider a minor plan, which is that's in the actual code that a waiver can be requested for a minor development. What does that mean to at least one of you?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but there is, if in the subdivision land development ordinance, a definition of a minor plan, and it's generally just maybe 2 lots or so, and a small number of residential parcels.
Okay.
But I don't have that in front of me. So, but if you would go to that, you could see the definition.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. It sounds like it's a pretty objective set of criteria. In this particular case, was this clearly within sort of that definition?
Yes, this and we have a representative from the developer, but essentially this is some residential properties that are being subdivided so that two single-family detached dwellings can be constructed on vacant lots. I think there's one lot that's being broken into two. Is that the case?
So it will result in a total of 5 lots, I think, when all the dust settles on this.
That's sort of a separate matter, but there's an unopened alley that is adjacent to several of the lots that are being segregated to equal parts of each adjacent lot to clean things up. It's an unused, unopened alley where there's been encroachments on it over the years, and it can't be open in the future unless we're going to demolish some private properties.
Thanks, Mark.
Just a quick question about that, because I didn't actually realize that when I was looking through the, because we've talked before about paper alleys, which is essentially what you're saying, like it's on the books as an alley, but it's not drivable, right? Is that what you're saying, that there's an alley that isn't really being used for cars?
There's an alley that's not being used, and there are some structures
on the alley itself.
Yeah, it doesn't go on.
Okay. My general concern, not necessarily with this, but because I actually didn't realize that, is we've talked about it behind the pool, that there's a paper alley there, and we do maintain that, we do mow it, and so, but people walk it, and so there have been some paper alleys, and so continually looking at that before we offer to, allow it to become final residential properties, when it can sometimes allow us to offer different safe modes of travel for people on feet or possibly bikes. So that's just something that I think in general, evaluating each one very specifically before we just like rubber stamp it and say, yeah, that makes sense. And I understand how structures do appear sometimes when, we haven't paid attention for many years, and it is, at the boroughs. I understand that when we are not maintaining them on our own, it does have a general time frame. But that's something that I think that once they're lost, we obviously are not going to recover that land again. So.
Great. Justin, do you have anything to add?
Chris.
Oh, Chris, sorry. Justin's letter.
Yeah, Justin.
That was my fault. I said, yeah, that's Justin.
I don't have anything to your answer questions. If you want me to further elaborate on anything, if you need.
Yeah, any other questions? Cool, thanks.
We have a motion and a second. Hearing nothing further, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
That ends my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Economic Development.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I have one item tonight. I move that Borough Council authorize the drafting and advertising of an ordinance to enter into an agreement by and between the Downtown Carlisle Association and the Borough of Carlisle, retroactive to January 2021 through December 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Councilor Hicks makes a motion to authorize the drafting and advertising of an ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none.
I would just like to add for everyone, council's edification. I really appreciate the work that Owen and Susan did. I think to enhance the agreement to be more beneficial to the community and to DCA itself. So I really appreciate their hard work in negotiating this.
Absolutely. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That completes my report.
Thank you, sir. ERCP, Mr. Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one item this evening. I move that Borough Council appoint Christina Kapp to a partial term on the Human Relations Commission. The term will become effective immediately and will expire on February 28th, 2023.
Mr. Stubbe makes a motion for an appointment to the Borough's Human Relations Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I go on to my one item, I'd just like to point out something that was in the information that we received, and I would like to thank the operational staff at the wastewater treatment plant for their incredibly innovative thoughts in changing the way that lime is entered into the piping system to do what it's supposed to do. That will also estimate, the staff estimates an annual saving of about $15,000 in costs if the new lime injection point continues to meet process requirements. And staff are also going to have their costs go down because they're not going to have to undertake maintenance, cleaning, and repair. So if you would please thank them, the folks who are involved with that, because that's wonderful. And it's wonderful to know that our employees are keeping their eye out for ways to make things better for everybody. So I just wanted to express our thanks to the crew that came up with this idea. Moving on, I would ask Borough Council to approve acceptance and execution by the Mayor of the Bill of Sale dedicating municipal improvements constructed by Pearl Developers for its Carlisle Veterans Land Development Plan to the Borough. Council may also approve release of $120,736 in financial security it is holding to ensure the construction of the municipal improvements.
Ms. Fulham Winston makes a motion to approve the acceptance and execution of a bill of sale. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this item?
I'll just make one quick note because I live right by there and I walk all the time. And one of my favorite parts of that development is that the block of C Street between Factory and College has not one, but two mid-block crosswalks.
Progress is being made, yes.
And I would like to just add, thank Corey for what appeared to be a very grand tour by the community engagement team of the water processing plant. They sent some really interesting pictures, and I know they learned a lot on that tour. So I appreciate their time.
Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. Anything further? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you very much. New business. Second chance for a bite at the apple for anybody that was too shy to speak up the first time around. No one here in Borough Hall. Joyce, anyone on Zoom seeking recognition?
Yes, Ms. Wanda Hunter has raised her hand.
All right.
And she has unmuted. Wanda?
Ms. Wanda, you're recognized.
Thank you, councilpersons. My name is Wanda Hunter, and I live at 234 Walnut Bottom. And I'm a part of the Colonial Square Apartments. And I had mentioned this before at a previous council meeting. There's a backup of water that accumulates on a downpour, like we had this afternoon twice. I looked out and it looked like a little lake. It's frustrating because I think of emergency situations where I would have to get out or someone would have to come and get me. And I really consider it hazardous. I'm concerned about it. And I know I've reported it before, and just to keep it afresh, that something is done with that drainage. So I appreciate anything that you could do. The sooner, the better. Thank you.
And thank you, Ms. Wanda, for your comment. Joyce, is anyone else? All right. Moving on to reports from council members and staff. We'll start down at the end with Councilor Landis.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. I'll just make one reminder that I mentioned at the last meeting that we have a meeting at Memorial Park, actually at Hope Station, this upcoming Wednesday at 6 p.m. to discuss litter and other safety issues. So I appreciate Stephanie's help in getting a sign together and posting that out. So we're just trying to get the word out and just have a meeting of the community and neighbors and try to get people together to collectively make the place as safe and accommodating as possible.
Thank you. Deb?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Mr. Crampsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to give a quick shout out to Councilor Hicks, DCA, and their partners for the work they did on the vaccines. It was a great event. It looked like a great event. It reminds me, as Councilor Landis mentioned, we're having Halloween parades and things are coming back, and it feels like a comeback for our community, which is great. But I'll keep coming back to thanking our staff for the work they've done over the past year now. And our solicitor for navigating how tough everything's been. And I don't think we missed a step because of the staff that we have. So again, thank you. We can't say it enough.
And speaking of things that came back, fireworks last Saturday. I don't know if any of you had a chance to see them or were there. I know our staff was there, and I want to extend a special thanks to Susan and Owen and Andrea for their hard work in bringing this whole thing together in a very short amount of time. So thank you very much. I heard nothing but praise for the fireworks, even though we started a little early, and I was concerned we'd take a hit for that. Folks understood we were just trying to avoid the downpour that was coming. It was perfectly timed, and I will not take credit for that, but it did not stop rain. It did not start raining until after our fireworks were over. So there you have it. Anyway, thank you. It was a great show.
By mayoral proclamation, the rain did not start. Just a couple things. Well, Destination Carlisle has its summer bucket list, so everybody jump into that, get your bucket list checked off. And then just a really cool story from a few days away out of town this weekend. Carlisle follows me everywhere. I went to an IndyCar race, and among the races that they had at the track at Mid-Ohio was something called the Stadium Super Trucks. And really cool. They'd go off these ramps. It's wild. But the winner of both races was the truck that is sponsored by the Carlisle companies. So Carlisle follows us everywhere. Driven by an Australian grandson of a Formula One champion, but Australian. But still, my kids were wild about it. We had a great time, and we got to see Carlisle all weekend while we were miles and miles away. So.
That does happen, doesn't it? Mr. Stubbe.
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple things. One positive, one not so positive. The positive, this is just anecdotal. This is just Joel Hicks having a beer at Bird's Nest with a couple business owners, letting them know we're actively looking at ways we can promote using roads, alleys, public spaces to encourage safe places for community to engage, and we've had some conversations on that. And I'll just say there was, and I won't name any businesses, and I won't name any specific segments that could possibly be candidates for this, but there was positive interest in looking at ways to block off parts of streets for certain days of the week. Thought it would be a really interesting and positive development for local businesses and for the community. So as we move forward in this discussion, let's be out. I think there's reason to be optimistic that we can come up with some ideas that help us provide sort of safe community areas that also allow our businesses to thrive, and also to sort of reduce the noise level that is somewhat can sometimes be a little bit of a deterrent to get folks together in our downtown. So let's keep moving forward and working on that. And then lastly, just if you'll just bear with me for a few comments. This is a kind of a modest platform, and generally I'm not moved to respond to comments made by our local officials, but in this case recently, I needed to respond. So I thought it would be a dereliction of my duty as an elected official not to publicly condemn the comments made by U.S. congressmen from the Pennsylvania's 10th District. I hope it's the first and only time I feel obligated to upbraid an elected official. But Scott Perry, let me put the bottom line up front. The biggest threat to America is not the Democratic Party. It's not the Republican Party. It's not the police. It's not the military. It's not Blue Lives Matter. It's not Black Lives Matter. If anything, it's your disgraceful rhetoric and what it implies. After reading recent news pieces about your speech at the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference, I did not want to quote you out of context, and therefore I watched, painfully, your entire speech to make sure I did not misinterpret anything. And you are not quoted out of context. And I would ask you to inform me if you think I do so. You stated that Democrats, quote, want to destroy the country that you grew up in. This is their plan, unquote. Let's let that settle in for a second. I'm a proud 20-year Navy veteran and have never been more proud to serve as a public servant than right here in your district. Although I'm a Democrat now, I've been a Republican most of my life. I've never really given that change much thought. My policy preferences evolved, changed, but I never questioned that both parties had the best interests of the country at heart. Mr. Perry, I'm clearly part of the they you're referencing. I ask that you show me the plan I'm using to destroy America. Show it to me. I also know your disturbing nonsense at the conference didn't come from any military education training. I've taken it too. Even your former Army War College instructors have written that your dangerous rhetoric, stating that many of your comments are, quote, troubling. You said because the Democratic Party tolerates some who advocate defunding the police, we are effectively endorsing this view as a party. I ask that you come here to Carlisle and see how much we've defunded the police. We have a council of 7 Democrats. You know, many of your Republican colleagues supported the Capitol Police who protected you during the January 6th violent insurrection. Now, just because you voted against honoring those law enforcement officers doesn't mean I think the Republican Party disrespects our police units. I also happen to know we have 2 Republican commissioners here who reinforced the integrity of our elections against false claims of fraud, despite the fact you tried to have Pennsylvania's electoral votes rejected without any evidence of fraud, while simultaneously validating the outcome of your own congressional race. I do not ascribe your views to anyone but Scott Perry. The Republican Party didn't denigrate our election process, you did. You are on your own. As best as I can tell, the only thing we really need to save us from, whose only reason to get up every morning seems to be to divide America, is you. The shtick is old and is tired. Your closing mantra at the conference, and I quote, was go fight them. We are the them. They are, quote, not a loyal opposition. The them is Democrats. We are, in your words, destroying America. Those words are disgusting, they're inflammatory, and not worthy of someone who wore a military uniform, or at least a U.S. military uniform. Quite frankly, it pisses me off. It is telling that you, Scott Perry, never even acknowledged how the Borough of Carlisle, served exclusively, by coincidence, by 7 Democrats, was recently designated an All-America City by the National Civic League. All-America City, the first such designation in the Commonwealth in 21 years. I emphasize the word America because it seems as if you, not your party, mind you, have decided to define what being American is and should be. As best as I can tell, your America seems to be one whose main threat comes from within. That sounds a lot like McCarthyism to me, one of the darkest chapters in American history. And in fact, your America actually doesn't sound like anywhere I would want to live. Funny thing is I love living in America right here in your district. You should come here to Carlisle occasionally, and I'll share with you personally why we are literally a poster child of America. We care for our homeless, we acknowledge our past mistakes, we follow the science. I'll buy you a beer and share with you why I still think we're the greatest country in the world. And if at any point you feel like we're destroying America, we'll come up with a safe word and I'll let you go. Your clumsy comparison of Democrats to fascists is particularly demented. As an instructor, I would have returned your hypothesis with the words, please resubmit after rereading the history of everything. First off, you should probably figure out whether you think Democrats are fascists or communists. I thought you labeled Democrats communists long ago, which, as you know, were the opposition party to the fascists in 1930s Germany. At least get your fear-mongering narrative correct. You need a break, Scott Perry. I urge you to tone down the rhetoric, quit pitting Americans against Americans. We have real challenges we need to address. We have real threats to mitigate. With or without your help, and mostly without, we're addressing them here in Carlisle. We look forward to eventually having someone who represents all Americans leading the Pennsylvania 10th, either through the democratic process or through Republicans monitoring their own, which most Republicans still fight for, even though they haven't yet canceled you. And lastly, at the end of your speech, I just wanted to add, I replaced my screen door this year and I didn't need a permit. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Susan,
Nothing this evening, sir.
any staff reports?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Solicitor?
I have nothing. I'm just happy to be here.
And I'm happy that you're here. All right. Thank you, everyone. Seeing nothing further, we are adjourned.